Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the cooldown room for the 2018 US Grand Prix. How was that for you? What a Grand Prix. What a race. I have no idea what's going on in the chat box there. I'll try and sort that in just a moment. But what a Grand Prix we had in Austin. One of, for me, I know some may disagree, but one of the best races of the season. It went right down to the wire between the top three, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. And yeah, I think most of the F1 community probably over the moon for the eventual race winner, Mr. Kimi Räikkönen. So I'm going to be joined by Jonty and Jonty and Chain Bear in just a few moments to discuss some of the big talking points in the race, get some initial reaction to it. But let's start by having a look at that race result. Kimi Räikkönen, his first win in Formula One since Australia 2013. It's been a while, as his team radio said, as he went across the line. Fantastic result from him. Really good drive. Did everything he could for Ferrari today. Max Verstappen, 18th to 2nd. 18th to 2nd. That guy can overtake 9th, I think, by the end of the first lap. 7th by lap 5. Fantastic drive. Lewis Hamilton, two-stop strategy. He ended up 3rd. It didn't really work out under the VSC for him. Didn't take the title, but that will be sorted. I'm sure in Mexico, 70 points to lead now, so it's just a kind of a formality, isn't it? Sebastian Vettel 4th, ignore that thing at the bottom of the screen that was scrolling. It was Vettel in 4th place, stopping Hamilton from taking the title, with Bottas in 5th. Nico Hülkenberg 6th, with Carlos Sainz in 7th. Great result for Renault. Really impressed with them in the race this weekend. Esteban Ocon 8th, but he is under investigation. We're going to talk about that in a bit. We'll keep an eye on Twitter, but according to Ted Kravitz on Sky, don't expect a decision on that anytime soon. It was for exceeding the maximum fuel flow on lap 1, I believe is what they're saying. So up to Force India now to prove they didn't do that. Kevin Magnussen, he was 9th for Haas. Really surprised by the lack of pace by Haas this weekend, to be honest. And Sergio Perez took the last point in 10th. Brendan Hartley 11th. Marcus Ericsson in 12th. Stoffel Van Dorn down in 13th. Pierre Gasly 14th. The Williams boys 15th and 16th. And then your retirements list: Charles Leclerc, Daniel Ricciardo with more mechanical issues, Romain Grosjean, who could be in some serious trouble. We'll talk about him in just a moment as well. And Fernando Alonso. Right. Yes, everyone take a deep breath. I think we're ready for this. Let's start. Hopefully everything's going to work tonight. We had some issues with voice meter in the week. I'm trying it again, but that was a bit rubbish, wasn't it, Jonty, that one?
I don't know about you. I was on the edge of my seat the whole thing. It was fantastic. I hope everyone watching enjoyed that.
I'm not going to lie. I'm going to completely honest. I was literally stood up towards the end of the Grand Prix. It was incredible. What's that? 2.3 seconds between the top three and 3 different teams. I mean, what more do people want? Brilliant racing. We're also going to say a very good evening and hello again to Stuart. Did you enjoy that race, or did you find it a little bit boring like one or two others are, Stuart?
You know what? I was flat out on my back asleep the whole race long. Nothing there to perk my interest at all. No stories, no excitement, nothing.
Terrible race. No, seriously, one of the best of the season, surely. That was right down to the wire. Fantastic. Wheel-to-wheel stuff between Verstappen and Hamilton as well. I mean, wow.
Yeah, brilliant race. There was mixed strategies. There was actual racing on track. There were mistakes. There was a championship on the line. What more could you ask for?
I'm just Kimi Räikkönen the win as well, Jonty. I mean, 2013 Australia, his last Grand Prix victory. I mean, I knew it had been a while, but even I was surprised when I heard that stat again. Just great to see him up there on the podium on the top step. Not that he looked overly pleased with it, if we're being honest. Are we having issues with audio again?
No, that's me pressing the wrong button.
I thought it was me. I thought we'd gone again.
No, 113 races between wins. That's a crazy statistic. I don't think anyone's going to top that.
That's just astonishing. When you think as well a driver of Kimi's caliber and the fan base love him so much, I was really genuinely surprised by how long it was since his last win. I mean, I knew it had been a while, but 113 races. Wow, that's unbelievable. I mean, emotional a little bit, Stuart, when he's up there on the top step. I know he doesn't show much emotion, but it really was a nice moment, wasn't it?
It was, and I know he feels more inside than he shows on the outside, and he kind of saves his emoting for his private time. He doesn't like to do it out loud. But yeah, amazing to see. I still, every time I think about it, I've been staggered by the fact that he hasn't won a race at all since returning to Ferrari. So I'm glad he got this one in before he left.
That's true as well. Mate, was it Lotus Australia 2013 then?
Yeah, it was. If I recall, he actually won back-to-back races over 2 seasons. He won the last race of 2012 and the first race of 2013.
He did. That's a stat. I like a good stat, but just brilliant drive. And I have to hold my hands up, and I don't know about you two over on Twitter, but I was getting ready to give Ferrari a proper pasting for what I thought at the time was a terrible strategy call, not bringing him in under VSC, Jonty, but it worked out an absolute treat in the end.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that actually worked, because it's one of those things when there's a real safety car or even a virtual safety car, you take the pit stop because it's going to save you at least 10 to 15 seconds. Everyone was thinking that they'd blown it by then, but for once they proved us wrong.
Yeah, it just worked out perfectly. And I loved that dummy as well, Stuart. That little dummy he made towards the pits when, Hamilton was told to do the opposite, and he just played the game perfectly for Ferrari, and he got his reward at the end, didn't he?
Yeah, that in a way that dummy really made it, because Hamilton in interviews afterwards said it kind of, the dummy just made him automatically go for the pit stop once he realized it was a dummy, and he said, if I'd have thought about it for a couple of seconds longer, I wouldn't have done it, because it was way, way too early to come in. And Hamilton was actually the only person in the top 12 to do 3 stops. So yeah, good move, Kimi.
Yeah, just an all-round perfect drive from him, I'd have to say, and it's like I say, it's really good to see. But another man, we are going to talk about the title fight in a moment, but we can't not talk about the top two. Max Verstappen Started 18th, Stuart. Finishes second, 1.2 seconds off Kimi Räikkönen, and just a second up the road from the pole man. I mean, this guy, I keep saying it, he doesn't get a lot of credit from some in the F1 fan base, but I mean, he can flip him well overtake, can't he?
He really can, and he can put together a solid race. I was somehow I'd missed his pit stop, and I spent a lot of the time in the second half of the race thinking, yeah, he's second, but he's got to stop again. And only with about 15 laps to go did I realize, oh no, wait, he hasn't got to stop again. He's actually second. This is ridiculous. How on earth did he get there? Amazing race from Verstappen. Really, really drive of the day kind of contending drive.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's won the official one. I know that's a bit of a meme, but I think that's completely deserved. He was absolutely brilliant. And I think, we could be a little bit harsh, Jonty, if we want, and say he did luck in with Vettel's mistake and a couple of others ahead of him having wheel-to-wheel stuff and Mercedes two-stopping Hamilton, but that shouldn't detract from 18th to second, should it?
Oh, no. He did most of the work on lap one. Apparently, according to some of Red Bull Horner, I think, they've been asking at breakfast, so how many cars are you going to have on the first lap? He thought he'd get to about P12, and in actual fact, he came around lap 1 in P9.
Was he? I think he was 5th by lap 7.
Yeah, it's unbelievable pace. And like a lot of people have been saying, it makes you wonder where Ricciardo would have been.
Yeah, I mean, we'll stick with Red Bull briefly. Just more misery for Danny Ric. I mean, he was quick, don't get me wrong, but he didn't seem to be on the pace of Max Verstappen this weekend, if I'm being honest, Jonty. He didn't really seem to be quite there. He hasn't for the last few Grand Prix, but just more mechanical misery, and it's always his car. And there's a few people coming out with conspiracy theories, but I mean, he gets the penalties, he starts down the grid, he's got to push his engine a bit more. It's going to happen, and I bet he can't wait for this season to end now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can't really call any conspiracy theories because the engine supplier is the team he's going to.
That's true, yeah.
They'd have nothing. What would they have to gain from that? But he is just really suffering, and yeah, as people in the chat are mentioning, according to Christian Horner, there's now some extra ventilation in his dressing room that he put there, and I can't really blame him.
No, fist through the wall. I can completely understand that. We saw, didn't we, Stuart, after the last Grand Prix in qualifying, that massive moment where he just will not use the word, but big outpouring in the pit lane, real frustration and anger, and obviously boiling over again. It's ridiculous, isn't it, the reliability he's having?
It really is. I can't believe we got to the point where Formula One has broken Daniel Ricciardo, the smiley, happy, devil-may-care driver, shouting his face off in the pit lane. Yeah, and like Jonty, I think it's just the bad luck of the draw. And as you say, the more bad luck you get, the further down you have to start, and then you have to push your engine to try and make the most out of the race, and it sort of becomes a bit of a death spiral. But I'm sure he's sort of looking for the end of the season now and ready to move on and have a fresh start and draw a line under this year.
Do you think if he had, as Jonty kind of touched on there, if he had not had the reliability problems and Red Bull had got the strategy right like they did with Verstappen, could he have been P3?
There's every chance he could have been. Verstappen didn't do anything crazy strategy-wise. He had actually quite a normal one-stop race. He just had the pace and people just sort of stopped around him and he was able to run at a decent pace for most of the race. So there's every chance he could have been up with them. It's one of those things that you can never really say. And would he have ended up tripping over us? Not literally like in a crash, but would they end up getting in each other's way? It's really hard to say. And of course, if Ricciardo... Actually, that's a lie. I'm going to stop there.
I mean, I might ask you that afterwards. I'm intrigued what you're going to go with there.
No, I was just going to say if Ricciardo hadn't hit Vettel, then I remembered it wasn't Vettel that took him out. It was the Renault.
Yeah. We'll not enter that one just yet, but we're going to have to talk title fight now. It goes on, for what it's worth, Jonty, it goes on to Mexico. 70 points a gap, 75 available. More contact for Seb. I mean, I hate to come out and say this. It's late, so I'm a bit tired. So I'm probably going to say things I maybe will regret in the morning in the comment section. But does he really want this title?
He's He does really want it, but he's making reckless moves now. I mean, that wasn't really anything. They both had track position. They both had space. I think he was just fighting when he didn't need to. The same as he's been doing the last few races, going for those gaps and taking those risks when it would serve him better just to wait a lap or two, or even just a corner or two until he's in a better position. But now he's just sticking to the rule of seeing a gap, going for it. Very much like Max was at the start of the year. It's very, very strange to see.
Yeah, I mean, I say, does he want the title? Of course he does. He's a racing driver. He wants to win everything. But it's just another mistake in what's just getting worse. And he seems like, I suppose, under the pressure, nothing to lose. He kind of feels he's got to make those moves. But first lap against Daniel Ricciardo, he's got that much quicker Ferrari engine in the back. He should be able to then wait a lap. If the move's not quite on, wait and just try a lap later. But I suppose you never really know, do you, Stuart? That Red Bull could have been quicker and pulled away, and then he'd look really stupid for not trying. So it's one of those title on the line, got to go for it moments, I suppose.
Yeah, it could have been, but again, I mean, Jonty's absolutely right. There needed to be some patience. I don't know what has happened to him lately. 3 of the last 4 races, he's crashed into someone and spun out in the early laps, if not the first lap. It's a kind of desperation we haven't really seen from him before. He's normally fairly a composed driver. So clearly, after the summer, he went into the summer break thinking they had the strongest pack, like we all did. He had the strongest package. He was on target to sort of take this title by the reins, and everything just kept falling away from him. Maybe mentally, it's just had a real impact on him. And to be honest, halfway through this race, he probably hoped that Hamilton would take it to put him out of his misery, so he could just relax and focus on racing again. But I mean, I become acutely aware of sounding like a Hamilton fanboy when I'm really not. But if you saw how Hamilton dealt with Verstappen in the later race, he knew sort of when to go for it, when to back out, and he didn't have the race ahead of him.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. I mean, just looking at it's not just this one mistake. You look at Monza, you look at the FP2 in Singapore. Even people keep talking about the move on Bottas in Baku, where he locks up and it kind of throws his race away. The contact in France, it's just Germany obviously crashing out of the lead. He just too many mistakes this year at the end of the day, Jonty, have cost him this title. And that's that takes nothing away from Lewis Hamilton. He has driven the better of the two this season. I know the title is still mathematically possible. It's not sorted yet. You never know in Formula One and all those cliches. But he's been the better driver over the course of the year. And, again, a bit like Stuart said, they're a little bit worried now about coming across a Hamilton fanboy. It's not that. He absolutely deserves this title because he's kept it clean. One retirement this season, which was Austria. Despite having the weaker car first half of the season, he's come out from a summer break, turned it up a gear, and he's cruising it. Yeah,
he absolutely does deserve the title. Anyone who denies that is just hating for hate's sake. He has kept it cleaner. He's put the results in when it mattered, and he's rescued the results when he's been up against it. That's the biggest point. When Vettel's been up against it, he hasn't. There's the big difference.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look back to Silverstone, Germany, Hamilton out of position, obviously hit by Raikkonen in Silverstone, came back to second, I believe. And then obviously Germany, with the Ferrari crashing out, managed to bounce back to win the race from really far down the grid. He comes back and Vettel struggles to. I mean, how long? I know Bottas is in a super quick car. You could say this weekend the second fastest on the grid, obviously the Mercedes, but it took him forever to pass Bottas, Stuart. I thought he would have been really... the way he went for it on Ricciardo, the desperation on that first lap to make up places, I thought he would have really gone for it and been up and past Bottas in no time, just with nothing to lose.
Yeah, and perhaps he was a little more tentative after so many accidents, or waiting for an opportune moment. It's really hard to say what was going through his head at that point. And, they were pretty much even Stevens on strategy. Their tyres were about the same age. He did cruise up right behind him and then just sat there about a second behind for I don't know how many laps. But when he did get past fairly easily.
Yeah, he got the move done, didn't he? And he kind of had to. Obviously, Hamilton fighting with Verstappen to take that second place. So, yeah, not really much. I don't know what to say on the title fight really, because I want to try and put some excitement into it, but 70 points available, 70 points lead, 75 points available, Stuart. Basically, Vettel has to win every race and Hamilton has to just absolutely implode, doesn't he, for this to go wrong now?
Yeah, it's like very much he's got both hands, his chin, and one foot on the trophy now. But I do wonder, because Hamilton has seemed a little bit on edge the last few races, and I do wonder if that very first year in 2007, when he had it pretty much in the bag with 3 races to go and lost it, I wonder if that's the kind of thing that plays on his mind year on year. He never believes he's got it until he's got it, even with a 70-point margin.
Was it an interview with Sky Sports, I think he said before the weekend, that he referenced 2007 and said that he'll never, basically what you said, he'll never talk about taking that title until it's all done, because you just never know. And I mean, I wonder if that was a moment in his career that made him what he is now, in that because he never accepts he's won the title till it's done, he always pushes, always gives it everything until he gets across that line to get it done.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that probably was a very valuable lesson to learn in year one. Not that I'm saying he went off the boil when he thought he had it in the bag, but just the knowledge that you have to fight for every single point until it's done. And he is the kind of guy that things, creep into his mind and start to toy with him. So he likes everything to be just right. And I think he's going to be a very happy and contented person after Mexico, where everything will probably be finished up.
Yeah, I can't see it not, to be honest. Do you think it'll go beyond Mexico, Jonty? It's going to have to really swing, isn't it?
But either way, how you look at it is, from the next 3 races, Hamilton only needs 1 7th place. And then it's done. So yeah. Can anyone see that not happening? It's highly unlikely.
Yeah, very unlikely, I think. We'll move on for the title fight very quickly. Valtteri Bottas, 5th place today. Didn't really have the pace this weekend, Jonty. Not just race pace, but even qualifying just didn't seem to be able to match his teammate or the Ferrari. So a bit of a, I suppose you could say, lonely weekend for him, really.
A little bit, yeah. But he's way, way out of the title fight, has been for a while, and seems to now be resigned to playing the wingman role. So maybe he's not trying as hard.
Maybe. I mean, I've seen on the wingman stuff, I saw some criticism on Twitter about Mercedes playing team orders again. I mean, come on, it's the title's on the line. Hamilton's been quicker all weekend. When Hamilton came out in the pits behind Bottas, he was on the fresher tyres. I mean, come on. It's not anything to do with team orders and the title. It's just common sense, isn't it, Stuart? Ferrari would do it, Red Bull would do it, Force India would do it, Sauber would do it.
Yeah, exactly. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, especially at this point. What was actually, and it was interesting to see, again, for obvious reasons, Vettel letting Kimi Raikkonen through. But yeah, at this point, Bottas just has to do his thing. He wasn't even in contention for any particularly valuable position today. So yeah, just let him through.
I think the surprise for me with Vettel letting Raikkonen through was Raikkonen's surprise when he's sort of like, am I supposed to be going past him here? I thought I was quite good actually on team radio. We'll move on for his top 3 because we'll talk about those for quite a while actually, to be fair. But Renault this weekend, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I thought they were a little bit meh as we came to the race, but 6th and 7th, best of the rest, Jonty. Huge points, 20 clear now, I think, of Haas in the Constructors' Championship. That's a big weekend for them.
Oh, yeah, very, very big weekend. And that's going to bring them some much-needed extra money as things go forward.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that top 4, that top 7, or that 7th place is still in contention for the Drivers' Championship. But I think Renault look like they should be able to take 4th now, to be honest, with that 20-point gap. Again, you never know. 3 races to go. Couple of good weekends for Haas, who seem to have gone off the boil a little bit lately. But I'm surprised by Force India's pace as well. I really thought they were going to be best of the rest, and they did by all accounts. But Esteban Ocon under investigation, Stuart, for, is it a breach of the exceeding the maximum fuel flow on lap 1, I think?
Yeah, that's what I read. And yeah, the engines have a limit on how much fuel you can pump into the engine, which gives you a limited amount of power, and the FIA will have their own sensors in the engine. So it's likely, like with breaches of pit lane speed limits, that's not incorrect. What Force India then will have to do is argue that it breached it because they ran over a curb and it popped open the the injector for 2 seconds or something. They'll have to find some excuse for the reason that happened, because the computer shouldn't actually let that happen. So we'll have to see what happens with Ocon.
Is that a disqualification, do we think, or would that be like a time penalty? Because how similar is it to Ricciardo a few years ago?
I don't remember which Ricciardo you're talking about.
Australia 2014, was it?
Your memory's better than mine. Actually, I don't actually know what the punishment is. What happened in Ricciardo's case? You're going to have to fill me in because I'm just blanking on.
I can't remember exactly. Jonty might know the ins and outs from a technical side, maybe a bit better than me, but he got on the podium and then there was a fuel flow issue afterwards and he was disqualified. Jonty.
Yeah, any technical infringement like that is usually a disqualification. And just latching on to that, as this popped up on Twitter, people have been saying in the chat, Grosjean's had a 3-place grid drop for Mexico for his collision, and it looks like Magnussen will be disqualified from 9th because he's used more than 105 kilos of fuel.
Wow.
Okay. Wow, yeah.
I said on Twitter it's not over yet. So that would mean Hartley would get a point.
Oh, get in. Nice one, Brendan. What penalty points has Grosjean got, as it said? If any. Because that's critical.
I bet they won't do it. I bet they're going to bottle it. I think they would have given him penalty points if it hadn't have pushed him over.
They've given him 1.
Oh, jammy. Yeah, because if 3 would have been disqualification for Mexico, wouldn't
it? Yes, it would.
It would have. And I believe after Mexico or before Brazil, 3 of his points expire.
Yeah.
So he's got 1 more race to not get 2 points.
Whoa! That, I tell you what, he's dodged one there, hasn't he? I was waiting for the Grosjean one. We're going to talk about it in a bit. I'm not going to sit here and start trying to make up all the excitement in the midfield that I saw, because I really don't know. And that's a terrible thing to say on an F1 stream that's supposed to be talking about all the action in the race, but it was all at the front. It was all focused on that, so I don't know how much squabbling was going on. I saw the Stroll and Alonso incident, which we'll talk about in a minute, but was the Grosjean one for the incident? I think I remember sitting in the background when Vettel and Ricciardo were side by side through turn 12. I think he hit Leclerc, didn't he, and put him into a spin.
That's right, yeah, he sort of late braked up the inside. Classic clumsy move. Spun Leclerc around and then ran over his front wing. But classic clumsy Grosjean.
Yeah, just to follow on from that, just think if both Ocon and Magnussen get disqualified, Hartley would get 2 points, I think, and Ericsson would get a point.
That'd be fitting for the outgoing king, wouldn't it? But yeah, I mean, 3 points for Grosjean. Maybe I'm wrong. Might have been a bit harsh just for that incident with Leclerc. It's not a hugely serious one, is it? If you know what I mean, not a big one. So I think that might have been a bit harsh. 3 points.
Maybe, but it did completely ruin Leclerc's race. We saw that his pace was absolutely nowhere because of damage, and he ended up retiring. That's
true, actually. Yeah, fair point. Stroll and Alonso, how did you see that one, Stuart? Early in the race, I felt a little bit for Stroll. Where's he really? And I mean, Alonso didn't squeeze him, but other than run completely off the track on the right, I don't really think Stroll could do it. I need to see some more replays of it. Some saying he hit a curb and it sort of made him lose a bit of control, but I think that was quite harsh, a drive-through.
Yeah, it was because there was so much happening at the front. We didn't really see it a lot or focus a lot on it. But I didn't really get to see what was going on around Stroll. But he did seem to sort of over enthusiastically shoot up the inside and clonk Alonso. Alonso clearly moved across to take the line. Yeah, drive through possibly a little harsh, but you know you've got to sort of keep these things together, especially through the S's on lap 1 when you can take out a huge number of cars if you're not careful.
Yeah, I'm not really. I'm not saying I don't agree with the penalty or the fact it was, that he hit Alonso and sort of broke the rules in that respect. I just think drive-through was quite harsh when we see compare it to other penalties over the course of the season for other incidents that aren't overly dissimilar to that, if that makes sense. But this is the FIA, so there's no real point getting into that one. But yeah, I think a 5-second time penalty, I think, would have been sufficient. But I suppose maybe, I don't know, Jonty, maybe the stewards looked at it and saw Alonso lose control and go across the front of a number of cars and then off the track. Maybe that's probably what they've looked at.
Well, I haven't seen that many replays. The only replay I really saw was the onboard from Stroll, and it seemed a bit like me playing racing games years ago, where if I go in too quick, I'll use the other cars as brakes. He seemed like he carried way too much speed into that corner.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I put a cheeky thing out on Twitter as well, just to see if I could get some people to snap, but I don't think anybody really likes Stroll apart from Ellie, so it didn't really work. But yeah, I mean, Alonso was moaning on team radio. He's a guy that is just disillusioned with Formula One. I think we talked about this yesterday, weren't we, Jonty, in that impromptu stream we did. He's quite disillusioned and everything in Formula One's rubbish and it's never going to be any good ever again.
Yeah, well, can you really... I can't really blame him too much. I mean, he put everything behind McLaren Honda.
Yeah.
And it constantly failed. Whether it was Honda or McLaren, that's a completely different debate. But he certainly didn't help things along with how vocal he was. So I do feel a little bit sorry for him, but that there is a little bit of me that says, well, you've made your bed.
Yeah.
It is. His reaction today gave an interesting insight into kind of why he's ready to leave as well, in that fighting battles in the midfield is a lot different to fighting battles at the front, because the midfield drivers are a bit less experienced, a bit more desperate, so he's not able to have kind of mature fights like you see at the front, where drivers give each other room and tend Vettel excluded, to sort of know how much room they can give other drivers on the track. And I think he's a bit fed up of racing with the younger lot.
Yeah, I could understand that. He wants to be up there, doesn't he? He wants to be fighting with the Verstappens and the Hamiltons and the Vettels, and not the Strolls and the Sorotkins of the world. But, for me, I'll always say Alonso has to take some responsibility for what happened at McLaren, for his part in it. He doesn't build the cars, don't get me wrong, but ultimately McLaren just have not delivered for him, have they, at all? And you can completely understand why he's so frustrated with it all and wants to go off and do something else. I genuinely believe if a seat at Mercedes had come open, he would have stayed another couple of years.
Yeah, 100%. Especially if he could fight for a title or something. But no, he seems to enjoy the battles he can have in WEC, where, if there are any battles to be had. But he spoke very highly of how the different classes of drivers didn't seem to get in each other's way, which is interesting. Just on a point before you move on, I actually got up the list of all the penalty points drivers have been given, and almost every time points have been given for collisions, it's been 2 points. Just point of order.
Okay. Grosjean got 1 for... Do you think, like you said, do you think the FIA have bottled it a little bit, don't want to have to ban a driver so close to the end of the season? But then if that's the case, why put the rule in place, I suppose?
Yeah, but even if they'd given him 2, he still wouldn't have got a ban.
Yeah.
1 away. Either way, if he screws up in Mexico, he's getting 1.
And rightly so.
Yeah, absolutely. Driver of the day... It's a tough one. Start popping yours in chat, guys. But Max Verstappen won the official one. There's this little romantic in me that wants to give it to Kimi Räikkönen because it's been so long and it was quite emotional when he did it, and a lovely moment to finally see him get that win. Probably his last, unless Sauber turn up with the most incredible turnaround next season in terms of a car, or if he can do it between now and the end of the season. But one of his last opportunities, amazing. Would love to give him driver of the day, but I can't look beyond Max Verstappen. 18th to 2nd, fantastic drive, kept it clean, great wheel-to-wheel action for a guy that I think... it might have been WTF1 that tweeted it out. Say a guy that, half a season ago, people wanted dropped from Red Bull and sent to Toro Rosso, but he's been incredible this second half of the season, and I think today completely deserves driver of the day. I will come to... let's go to Stuart first.
My one's going to go for Kimi. And I know we need to look further down the field, but we didn't see further down the field today. So, I'm sure Gasly did an amazing job. But Kimi Räikkönen is my driver of the day because for all it looked, he was on the inferior strategy. Purely Ferrari just wanted him to get in Hamilton's way today, and he managed to stretch it out and take the win when it just looked like he was on the wrong tyres at the wrong time. So really impressive drive, stretching those both the ultras and the softs out for longer than anyone else. Great drive.
He'd be my number 2 in terms of driver of the day. No, no meme or pun or anything intended there on Kimi Räikkönen. I do apologise, that was terrible, but I do tend to agree with you on that. He deserves a proper shout. What about you, Jonty, driver of the day?
It would have to be Max. As much as I love the fact that Kimi's got the win, and we've all been waiting for that to happen for so long, Max's performance was just stunning. And especially to make the softs last as long as he did. I thought Red Bull had really screwed up when they brought him in so early after starting on the soft. So eking out the super softs was making it even better.
Yeah, great point, actually. Very good point. Forgot to mention that. But yeah, I just can't... I get the whole... A lot of people in chat saying Kimi, I completely understand, but I can't look beyond any driver who goes 18th to 2nd in whatever car they're in. But if I'm talking rest of the midfield, from what little I saw, I'd have to give Carlos Sainz a shout out. 11th, got up to 7th very quickly. Not close to his teammate, but not a million miles away, I suppose. Yeah, I was quite impressed with him. Nothing special, but I think he deserves it. And then ultimately, I suppose, Hulkenberg. I suppose if we were going team of the day, you could argue Renault are probably in with a shout there. I
was just about to say that. Renault have really had a great sort of recovery weekend because they've kind of been struggling the last few races. They haven't been as racy as Force India or Haas have. So it's good to see them bringing it back.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Stuart?
Yeah, definitely. And making 12 points up over your nearest rival with 3 races to go is exactly what they needed.
Someone just asking in chat, do you guys think Sainz's penalty was justified? I do not. I watched the replays literally just before the stream went live, and I agree with what Martin Brundle said. It doesn't look any different to what Sebastian Vettel did in that first corner. And I think that's incredibly harsh. And he actually lost places in the end as well. So I think very harsh to give him a penalty for that on the first lap.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He didn't really gain anything. Like you say, he ultimately lost places because going off that far, he had such dirty tyres that we saw all around the first lap. There was dust being kicked up all over the place, even from on the track and on the racing line. So,
yeah, very, very strange call, and amazing they even had time to think about it, considering everything else that happened on the first lap.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's chaos, wasn't it, through that midfield on that first lap? I didn't really know where to look. I was too busy watching all the leaders, trying to see what Kimi was going to do. A cracking start from Kimi as well to get that jump on Sebastian Vettel. So, but we'll not start talking about the others. We're going to get onto 3-word race reports. I've already got mine. I tweeted it out when Kimi crossed the line, but I won't use all the words I used. I'll change them slightly. But just going through Twitter now, let's have a look. Let's go down to the bottom, go to those that got their tweets in nice and early, about 129 to scroll through very quickly. Bosco said what I said, but I'm not going to let you have that. I'll give you a shout out for you. Alexi and Adam all saying the same. Herman G. I'm not going to read that, actually. I should have read that before I said your name, but very good. You made me laugh. Neek says, Kimi, the legend. We love Kimi, says Sean Smith. Daniel Philippe says, perfect, simply perfect. Well done, Kimi, says Peppy. Elliot, way too tense. That's a very good one. That was tense. I was literally, as I said at the start, stood up, nose practically pressed against the TV. So exciting. 113 between drinks, says Foxes. Oh, let's not do that. That was
sorry, I can resist that.
We'll talk about that person in a moment. Restart my heart, says H. Some tense laps, says 40 Lemon. Let's scroll up a bit further. So we've got a few more. Verstappen the Saviour, says Patrick Paddy Pat. That's a mouthful of a name. Let's have a look. Tom Ricciardo Engine Calamity. Fantastic job, Kimi, says top-notch banter. Two more. Mike says Kimi actually smiled. He did. He absolutely did. And let's have one more look. Salvador Max, future champion. And actually one more. A spooky capybara. I don't know what that means. Says about bloody time. I said it when I tweeted it. I'll not say it exactly, but my three words are Kimi frickin' Raikkonen. Go on, Jonty. What are yours? Not that noise.
Yeah, took too long. Just for Kimi to get his win. It's great when it came, but it took too long.
Yes, Stuart, you got one?
I did, and then I realised it was 4 letters, so it's going to 4 words. So it's going to be grammatically awful now. Focus at front was my one. Because for once we weren't having to look to the midfield to get excited.
Which is nice for a change, actually, isn't it? We always talk about how we like to see more of the midfield and talk about it on the channel, but it's actually nice to have had a bit of action at the front, and it was brilliant. I'm going to take a couple from chat now of these 3-word race reports. Who did we ever find out where that noise was coming from? Either of you? Because I was sat here and I was like, who the hell is that? Like an irritated old man. I was quite annoyed by it.
Oh, really? What? I thought it was hilarious.
I'm old. Well, I'm not quite as old as you. But that's me dead.
But apparently it was happening on both Sky and Channel 4.
Yeah.
No one was sure who it was, and apparently around lap 9, he was also impersonating the helicopter as it went over.
Maybe somebody buy one of the trackside mics or something like that, maybe.
I bet it was Buxton.
I wonder if we'll ever actually find out what went on there. I'm sure it's the kind of thing that F1 broadcasting blog will try and dig up.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if it was Will Buxton, Jonty, I can guarantee you will know next week because he won't be on any of the YouTube content.
Well, no, it was just a bit of fun.
Yeah,
and we like it when random things like that happen.
Yeah, just maybe in a more boring race, if you like, maybe do that a bit more. Maybe we should start doing that. Just randomly make noises. If we all go to Silverstone next year, find a trackside mic and just make some random noises for everybody.
That's a great idea.
I'm assuming that's what happened during the stream, to be honest.
It came from the helicopter, apparently. A couple of people say, and I guess that would kind of make sense. Also happened on F1 TV. I'll just say a couple more of your 3-word race reports from chat because I kind of neglected you with that one going through Twitter. Gildo da Silva says Verstappen not Verstopped. Very good, very good. I did like Red Bull's tweet after the race actually that it didn't Verstop him this time. Owen says brilliant race. Whoa, I'll let you have that as a 3 because it's just very, very clever. Absolutely bloody awesome, says Ethan. C. Boyce, no practice better. Paul Di Resta said that, Stuart, after the race on Sky and said, can we get rid of Friday practice every weekend? I mean, if that's what we're going to get, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is what happened today, but clearly, having a slightly less of an idea of how strategies are going to play out certainly means you can pick different ways to approach the race.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, less track action is never good, but get some more support races around F1. Yeah, I'd be down for that if it gives a bit of a mixed-up weekend. A couple of people saying that, actually.
Yeah, stick them in some old cars and make them do silly races on a Friday, and they can get to learn the track but not learn anything about their cars.
Yeah, classic races, Jonty. We'd be down for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Although it just popped up on Twitter. I just thought of one other thing. It was really rubbish trophy. All that waiting that Kimi's had to do, he gets a trophy that looks like a cooling tower.
Yeah.
It's fine. He'll just pour some beer in it.
Vodka. And plenty of it. Yeah, I mean, he got the ape trophy for P3 in France, so maybe that's an upgrade, possibly.
I still haven't decided if I like that one yet.
I hated it. That's the old man in me coming out again, though. Great race throughout, says Vice. I'm probably getting that wrong. Sam says exciting racing cliffhanger. That's a good one. Yeah, absolutely. Charles says Max got revenge. Yes, of course. Bit of redemption for what happened last year, I suppose. Some really good stuff in the cool-down room, I have to say, between Verstappen, Hamilton, and Kimi. Verstappen turned into Hamilton. Did you win the title? Nope. Yeah, that was really good. down to the wire, or down to wire. Rick is cursed. A couple more. FOM were useless. Didn't see a lot of the midfield, but like we've just been saying, it's nice to focus on the front and not be bored, I suppose. I hate saying bored. Not thrilling would be the best way to put it at the front usually, but yeah, good to see that. And Ricciardo is cursed. A lot of you feeling for Danny Rick this weekend, but all in all, let's round it up before we take some more questions from chat and whatnot. And there is something, an elephant in the room I need to address that's reading on the bottom right of the screen, which I will do. But all in all, Jonty, bloody good race, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. I was really enjoying it all the way through. That was the thing. Even when we had the pit stops going on, it was a lot of guessing of who was going to do 1 or 2. It was fantastic.
I think for me, you always know it's a good race when you look at how many laps you've had and you're surprised.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, brilliant race, wasn't it, Stuart? I'm trying to think if there was a moment really that it proper lulled or anything like that.
No, it never did really. And that's partly because the different strategies meant that, the top 5 cars were all in slightly different places in their own kind of race story. So they were kind of all merging together at different parts of the race. So where there was a lull for Kimi, that's when you had Vettel trying to work his way up. It was great. There was always something to see.
Yeah, it was just fantastic to watch. Absolutely fantastic. Best of the season? I still would probably put Bahrain ahead of it, possibly Baku, but it's right up there. This one.
Yeah, definitely. I think when we look back, I think it could well be the best of the season because there was always something going on every single lap. Whereas a lot of the races that we've looked back on and thought this was a great race, it was all sort of happening in the last quarter of the race. It had all built to this climax. Whereas this race, it was going on all the time.
Yeah. Where would you rank it, Jonty, in terms of races this season?
I put it just one spot behind Bahrain. Bahrain was all on track action. This was all intrigue with a lot of on track action.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, I'm just trying to think back. I know we're not quite at the end of the season yet, but there's been some a lot of complaints about boring racing, but there's been some really good ones as well. Silverstone was a great watch. Monza was really good. If we're talking recently, Germany, despite, everything that went on there, that was brilliant. Baku was fantastic. Bahrain was pretty decent as well. I mean, a lot of it DRS in Bahrain, but I still really rate that as one of the better ones of the season. China, the second half of that race was incredible. Austria was a decent race as well. Obviously, that was helped by the retirements of the Mercedes and got everybody else sort of racing because that was the bigger focus. But Japan, somebody just said in chat, there's been some really good races. For all the negativity around the sport, Stuart, I think that gets forgotten, that we have had some really good racing this year.
Yeah, we have. We've had some great races with some great narratives to them and changing across the race. There have been a lot of races where the first half has been kind of dry because that's when everyone tends to nurse their tyres. But we've had a lot of races where the second half of the race has all been about building to a climax, as I've said, and we've sort of left feeling excited and unsure of who's going to win or unsure of who's going to fill all the important points places. And that's kind of a really exciting thing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to address it. I'm a little bit unsure about addressing it because I'm very aware that YouTube likes to purge whenever I do stuff like this and ruin my day, or people like to troll me. But I just want to say a ridiculously huge thank you to everybody, whether it be subscribers or you two, Stuart and Jonty, for everything you've done to help get this channel to 50k. I still don't believe it, Jonty. It's been coming this last couple of weeks, and we've talked about it a bit, but I still do not believe that that's happened, and I'm still waiting for somebody to slap me and wake me up, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it slowed down, and we've been talking about it for a week or so, and then all of a sudden, yesterday and today, it's shot up again. So it's great to finally hit such a round number. All we need to do now is get the silver thing.
Yeah, are you still making me a bronze play button if you find any at work?
Yeah, that's my plan.
It's just incredible. I never believe this. I keep saying it just for those maybe that are new to the channel that don't know. I started 26th of June last year with the F1 word. My target was 100 subscribers by January the 1st. I think it was 7,000, weren't we, Jonty? January 1st?
Yeah. It'd gone over 7K by January.
Yeah, and originally I wanted 1,000 by the 1 year anniversary, and I think we're well over 30K at that point. So it's just been an incredible year, and I can't thank people enough. There will be a proper thank you stream and 50K thing, 50K special, I think the kids call them, I don't know. Probably midweek if the numbers go up a bit more as well, to make it a comfortable one, just in case YouTube like a purge. But it's not huge on YouTube. I know that I always say that in the grand scheme of things when you see those channels up there with millions, but for me it's massive. So thank you to everybody for all your support as well. It's been brilliant, and thank you as well to you, Stuart, for coming and getting involved. That was a bit of a surprise when you agreed. Not anything against you. I don't mean you're like a horrible person that was going to go, no, get lost. But yeah, you know what I mean. It's a big moment.
Oh, it's really great. We've reached this one of many milestones still to come. I know how much. Well, I have a sliver of an idea of how much work goes on behind the scenes. I just rock up on some Sundays and just blabber on. But yeah, awesome channel. I'm sure you have many more subscribers to come, and you do a lot of brilliant work. So I'm really glad you're hitting the numbers.
Thank you. That's very nice. Yeah, the blabbering thing, that's what we do most Sundays, to be honest. There's a bit of planning goes into it sometimes, but generally it all goes wrong. People already asking for the inevitable 50K. But yeah, we'll do something possibly Wednesday, but I need to talk to some peeps and see who can come on. And I need to start saying peeps. It's not 2010 anymore. But yeah, I need to talk to a few people and see if anyone wants to come on for that one. But we'll arrange something, I'm sure, for a 50K special. But let's take a few of your questions before we disappear. We are going to finish dot on 11 tonight, if not before, because Jonty's got work in the morning, haven't you, mate? So it's a late one, but it was definitely worth staying up for.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, great race. Fun stream to go afterwards. This is how every race should be.
Yeah, that's. I think a lot of people are saying that on Twitter. This is what we want from Formula One every time, every race. Obviously, we're not going to get that. You're not going to get that in any series. But it's just.
Well, we've got the chance of 2 more before the end of the season.
Well, Mexico will be good. Obviously, Red Bull should be right in there, shouldn't they? Again, well, I keep saying that. I keep talking about these tracks that are Red Bull tracks, Stuart, but they seem to be pretty on pace. And if Honda are half decent next year, they're looking a lot stronger than I think many are expecting next year.
That's what we're all hoping for, isn't it? Just Honda to finally be there. Because the last thing we want is the Red Bull to drop out of the top tier. If anything, we want more people in the top tier. So yeah, fingers crossed. Red Bull could be strong for the last 3 races.
Yeah. Justin has made a contribution. Thank you very much, mate. It says Rip K-Mag. I don't know if we've got any news on K-Mag. I'll let you have a look, Jonty, see if we've seen anything. Just going to take a question. Let's have a look. Just waiting now for a few questions to come in. Is there a chance Kimi will retire? I've just seen somewhere. That's Findley D30. He's got a contract, hasn't he, Stuart? So I'd be surprised if he suddenly decided to retire now. He seemed quite content going back to Sauber, actually, when that was announced.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly wasn't going back to Sauber to get that one last win, was he? No. So I don't think this is the thing that's going to change his mind. I think he just likes racing, but he can do it in a slightly quieter area of the grid at Sauber. So expect to see him at least next year.
Yeah. Thoughts on Hartley's post-race interview, says Craig Evans. I've honestly not seen it. Have either of you seen?
No.
I haven't seen anything. I could do a quick Google.
I'll try and have a look at that and tweet something if I remember to do it. I'm going to ignore some of these comments coming through because they are quite funny. Will Ocon get the second seat at Williams? I mean, he should. That's not really the question, though, will he?
Well, I don't know. There was a lot of interviewing of Williams people, particularly Claire Williams, going on with Channel 4 coverage every weekend, and they kept trying to drag the answer out of her. It wasn't quite forthcoming, but there was a couple of occasions where people nearly slipped up, so it could well be happening.
There's a twist in the tail as well, isn't there? They're talking about this, Autosport were talking about this plan that Williams are trying to get some funding so they can actually pick the driver they want rather than having to look at their bank account basically and say, oh, we're going to have to take such and such because they bring the sponsorship. So the twist in that is that she's been spotted on the grid with the guy from Rich Energy, Stuart. So there might be a bit of money coming in. And if they can raise the funds to help Williams out, that could really help Ocon out because I think they'd want him in that car.
Yes, fingers crossed. I mean, let's not get into the whole rich energy thing because God knows what that's all about. But yeah, if she can get herself some money and give that rich energy guy the publicity he wants, then let's hope she gets her pick of the remaining drivers.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot. I'd love to see Kubica get it for the story. I think Sirotkin's been good enough this year, even without his money, to warrant a second season, perhaps. I think he's been pretty solid. Surprised me big time. But Ocon, I'd take over both of those any day. As harsh as that sounds to those that have got that seat, I do rate him that highly, which I shouldn't have said, because I've just jinxed him like Stoffel Van Dorn, so I've probably just ruined his Formula 1 career. But never mind. If Vettel doesn't perform next year, says Kieran Robson, will Ferrari drop him? Contract expires end of 2020, does it, Jonty? So they might keep him till then and give him a bit of time. But he just needs to stop making the mistakes. He's a quick guy, and I don't like the lack of respect he gets. I think is completely out of order, and he doesn't get the recognition he deserves as a driver. But too many mistakes this year, a few last year as well, if you throw them in there. So he's got to stop doing that, or Ferrari will have no choice.
Well, you have to. Can you draw comparisons to how things are starting to go at Red Bull? And will he, if he's still underperforming at the start of next year, can you look at him having an escape clause? Because Ferrari won't put up with it for that much longer. They can be very ruthless.
Yeah. He had that escape clause at Red Bull, didn't he? To go to Ferrari if they weren't performing, or to leave if they weren't performing. So, and a young pretender as well, Stewart, coming in, might force his hand there.
I mean, it happened before. He left Red Bull after Ricciardo came in and beat him in his first year. So, yeah, I mean, Ferrari have got rid of Kimi when he was a world champion. And who knows, maybe Vettel will want to ditch Ferrari. I mean, it really depends on what other seats are available for him. It'd be really interesting if he was sat with Hamilton in Mercedes, or if Hamilton and him swap places. But they've been trying this thing for 5 years now, 4 years, and it's not really coming together for either of them, is it? Not quite.
No, it's. We were saying the other day, weren't we, Jonty? Well, yesterday. It feels a little bit like the beginning of the end. I don't necessarily think if Leclerc comes in next year and were to beat him, which I'm not convinced he will, I think he'll be more than a match for him. I think people will be surprised what he can do. I don't see him beating him necessarily, but if he gets in there and starts to perform and Vettel isn't, some of the things that have been said as well this year, I think we referenced it yesterday, Arriva Bene saying, Vettel is not a team boss, he's a driver. Little comments towards each other that we've not really heard before, and I do wonder if it is the beginning of the end there.
Yeah, and he really looked broken when he was getting at the end of the race. He just like he hadn't got any drive in him at all. So, can he turn that around for next year? I hope so, because he looked that way last year and came out a totally different driver at the start of the year. It just hasn't lasted. Maybe it can last a little bit longer. There's just so many ups and downs.
Yeah. Lewis Felipe says Hamilton booed ? I did wonder on the podium, actually, thinking back. I did hear something. I don't know if he was booed, but I'd be surprised if it was boos.
There were some, but it was minimal, thankfully.
I heard something that kind of if you know what I mean, resembled booing, but I'm surprised that it actually was. Especially in America, he's so adored over there, isn't he?
Yeah, that's a difficult debate to get into, which I wouldn't like to.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not. Don't worry, I'm not pausing to make you do it, Jonty, or anything. I'm just having a quick scroll through for some more questions. Could we see Verstappen in that Ferrari in 2020? Seb back to Red Bull. I'd be surprised if he goes back to Red Bull. I think they'd be more likely to promote somebody if he left. I still think I'm still pretty confident Verstappen will win a Ferrari one day, but some comments yesterday, I think it was, it might have been Channel 4, I'm not sure, because I was watching their coverage, by the way, yesterday, fantastic. Sky Sports should be doing that, but never mind, we'll get into that another day. But some comments about how Mercedes, if Hamilton retires, need to go all out to get Verstappen because they need that kind of driver in the car, Stuart, to lead the team.
Yes, Yeah, quite possibly. It's really hard to read what's going on there. I think, as far as I'm aware, Verstappen has the same kind of break clause that Vettel did when he left Red Bull, in that the car has to reach a certain amount of performance in order to allow them to continue his contract. So, I mean, I'm sure every team on the grid is looking at him, and he'll have his pick of places to go if he's able to escape from Red Bull. And meanwhile, Ferrari are in a bit of a mess, to be honest. And again, if you watch Channel 4's coverage, Eddie Jordan did one of his little pieces where he just shouts at the camera from different vantage points in the pit lane, and basically just absolutely laid into Ferrari. But he did have a good point that the management has just kind of gone completely wrong, let's say, to be polite. So is that where you want to be right now?
Yeah, something's not right at Ferrari. It's not been right without. I mean, we're not getting too much into it now, but it's not been right since Marchione's death, has it? It's really dropped off from there, which I think goes to show just how much he did for that team and just how much he did for Ferrari as a whole.
Yeah, 100%. And as I've said before, like a good leader delegates and empowers the people around him to make good decisions. And if there's an internal struggle without him, or if there's sort of a new leader who's risen up, who's chosen to do things in a different direction, it can throw things into disarray for years, really. So I think the proof in the pudding will be next year's car, because a lot of the work and development on that car will have happened in the months since Marchione first got ill and then sadly passed on. So we'll see how well they've been managing their approach to next year once we sort of hit testing and the next year's races.
Yeah, it'll soon come round. We'll leave it there though now. It's getting on for 11 o'clock. So thank you very much, Stuart, for coming along. I know you thought you might have to bring the Red Bulls, but I think the race gave us enough to get through a later stream. So I really do appreciate you coming on, and it's been awesome as ever.
It's been really great, and being on the stream this late kind of makes me feel like late night radio, and we should be going out with some jazz if you've got some lined up.
Oh, I wish you'd said something, because I so would have done. Maybe for Mexico, we'll pretend it's later than it is after the race, but it's been a pleasure having you on as well. Jonty, as always, mate. Yeah, appreciate everything tonight. Appreciate everything you do as well. And it's nice to have gone over 50k just before the stream started. So it's been a pleasure as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me on all this time. It's just great to have such a fantastic race to mark the occasion. And I look forward to whatever we do for a 50k stream.
I'm sure we'll do something crazy. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. And I will talk to you at some point soon.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Cheers, and congratulations again. Good night.
Thank you very much. Bye, guys. Thank you. That is it then from me. Thank you again to Jonty and to Stuart. And thank you, of course, to all of you guys for turning out. And once again, to everybody for helping the channel reach 50k. I really can't believe it. It's just been absolutely incredible, but it's been awesome doing this stream tonight. Really enjoyed a late night one, but I'm going to disappear now. I'll be back tomorrow with the debrief, the race review. That will be around about 4 p.m. UK time, depending on what state I wake up in the morning. I'm going to do a late night and try and get ahead on that one. I'll also be back hopefully live on Wednesday, fingers crossed, all being well, for a 50k special, but I will confirm that's not confirmed. I will confirm that on social media, so make sure you follow me over there. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.